one of the more subtle aspects of all this is looking for radiant presence somehow beyond. And radiant presence is just all this. Radiant presence is what is here. It's not special, I mean, any more than this is special. I mean, in fact, it's inconceivably special, but it's not a specialness that is somehow more special than normalcy, more special than the regular stuff. And you know, even with very sophisticated yogis, it's still possible to have a subtle, you know, divide between, you know, looking for that, looking for, you know, that, looking for this over there, and sort of other than or out of or away from here. And it's just one thing. It's just this, you know. You know, maybe the problem is all this nomenclature, calling it radiant presence or calling it, you know, God or calling it. I mean, it literally is that. So it's meaningful to call that. But the implication to all of us, the way we're used to using language, is that, oh my God, it's God. Like, whoa, you know, way over there, just huge and just, you know, awesome and everything. And somehow, you know, by just the sort of the innuendo is by contrast with all of this normal, regular, dull shit down here. And that's a completely mistaken implication. It's like a physicist looking at quarks. You look for, where do you look for quarks? Anywhere. Everything's made of quarks. You know, quarks. You want to find quarks? Check it out. You know, check it out. Quarks. And quarks are radiant presence. Quarks are made of radiant presence. Everything's made of radiant. Radiant presence is just the most. You can look at it in terms of physics, in terms of physical, materialistic physics. Radiant presence is the fundamental building block, the fundamental force, the unified field that all of the forces of physics and all the phenomena of physics are expressions of. So it's fundamental, it's radical, but it's all pervasive, and it's what everything is. So, you know, gravity is radiant presence. You know, electricity is radiant presence. Subatomic particles are radiant presence. Life forms are radiant presence. You know, weather is radiant presence. Galaxies are radiant presence. So it is special, but it's special because of what it happens to be, rather than special because it's somehow more special than something that is less special. Specialness is the root of all pain in a fundamental sense. As long as there's something special, then there's something less special, and then you're screwed because there's a carrot on a string of that specialness, and you're going to get there somehow. No, but you're not, because of course it's on a string, so you never actually hit the carrot because it's a fantasy. But you already have the quarks. You already have gravity. You have radiant presence, because that's fundamentally what this is. You know, in the most, and it always has been, in the most basic, you know, all-pervasive, permeating sense. So this is a fine point, but it's a very easy little thing to sort of trip yourself up with or trip over. I said the first night, and probably in a few other instances over the last few days, that it's essential with this yoga to find it in yourself, to find it in your own experience, to find the reality of it in your world. You know, it's not just some philosophy out there to aspire to or some whatever. You know, you have to find what it really is in the reality of your normalcy, in the reality of your life, or else it's nothing. It doesn't have traction, it doesn't have potency. And where you look for it is in your normalcy. You look for it in your reality. You look for it, right here, right now, in you being you, like you always are. It's not some special thing that somehow is going to shine down upon you or something like this.
To me, that seems like one of the main aspects of it. No, it's funny that you said it's one of 5 points, but to me, it's like, yeah, one of the most amazing things about it because it is so right there and it is so incredible.
Yeah.
And accessible.
Yeah. Absolutely. But you know that, see? And a lot of people don't.
But that's like what it should be. Yeah, we've got to talk about it. Here we are.
No, for sure, for sure. But you have to see how intrinsic it is and how natural and how permeative. And the yoga is coming to see that. And more fundamentally or more subtly, the yoga is coming to see that that is what you've always been seeing. Coming to recognize that that's what you've always been seeing. It's not coming to see something new or learning to see in a new way. It's all, oh, that's what this has always been. One of the most amazing things about realization is the fact that it's nothing new. It's like, oh, duh. And I often talk about it in these grandiose terms and call it transcendental and all that. And it absolutely truly is that. But don't let that suggest that it's somehow grander than you or something out there great that you have to somehow rise to or expand to or, whatever. A certain amount of this is just an artifact of human psychology because typically humans have some degree of self-loathing in them. Typically humans are somehow self-judgmental and to some degree or other. Maybe, people that are fortunate psychologically, maybe almost slightly, but there's some little voice in there that's saying, you fool, back there. Well, like I said, healthy people, I was, But that's an artifact of psychology. That's not accurate information. That's not good information. And the psychological quirks again are not actually the problem. The point is not to solve these psychological weaknesses and scarrings that we're all afflicted with. The point is to see that they're irrelevant because of what you actually are, what this actually is. So, we've been poking at this stuff rather intensively for a couple of days now. What's going on with you? What are you questioning, looking at? In any sense, anything.
I would like to hear your experiences, if you're willing to share what you experience with the radiance.
Well, my experience is is my normalcy. My experience is, you know, my psychology. You know, I wake up in the morning and I want a cup of coffee, and I'm hungry or not, and or I think of something I have to do that day that I don't want to do, and I say, oh shit, you know, or whatever, you know, very much like anyone's. But I also have a sense of the perspective of that. You know, we talked to Clayton, I guess yesterday, about context. That the context within which all that occurs is this astounding condition, this bubble of unfathomability that is floating here, and that's you know, it's a felt, self-verifying, obvious fact for me. And even when I didn't know, even when I didn't recognize that, it was still a fact. And in fact, I did know it. I just didn't recognize that I knew it because I took it for granted, because it was just, you know, it was. I don't know. It just didn't seem relevant. I was caught up in my drama, and so that's all that I was invested in. But the drama's still there. It's the same thing. It's just, you know, Peter Brown is still here, and he's still a jerk, and so on and so forth. But what that is and what that's in is this astounding condition.
An astounding condition. Is that what you said?
Yeah. And it's the same for everyone. This is not, you know, finding or discovering radiant presence. Realization is not a change. It really is not a change. It's not something new. It's not all of a sudden it goes from black to white. It's a recognition of, oh my God, this is the way that this has always been. And how could I not have seen this? How could I not have known this? You know, that is profoundly true. And which is why I like to emphasize kind of sensitivity training and being with unfamiliar or subtler aspects of your experience that aren't a part of your normal narrative and your normal game structure and so on and so forth, because you're already very familiar with that. But if you look at these aspects which are normally censored or normally downplayed, they have a whole different flavor that is outside the context of a narrative. It's outside the context of who you are and what you're doing and how you're functioning in the world. But they're real and they're relevant, and their implication of the way they are sheds light, sheds a sense of nature on what this is. It's like, in a certain sense, it's like looking at a bigger picture. You know, if suppose you lived in Joshua Tree, and you never left, and suppose you lived here, and you lived in one of these apartments here that we're staying in, and you never left the room. You just lived there, and you ordered in, and you just never walked out of the room. So your world is that, and that's all you're thinking that it is. But if you go outside and look around, it's like, wow, that's here too, you know. And then you can go out to the road and go down the road 10 miles, and wow, that's here too. And then you can drive down to LA and whoa, this is here too. And, you know, so it's sort of looking at what else is here that we don't usually attend to, because we usually have a tunnel vision with our normal obsessions. It's not that, and again, the relationship of all that is the same as it's always been, but we just haven't been paying attention to it. Because typically we get so caught up in our narrative and so caught up in what we think we're doing and who we think we are and our own sort of mental internal games we're playing with our life and so on and so forth, that we're distracted from noticing, you know, what that's all in, what the whole thing is. And a lot of the aspects, a lot of the flavor and implication of what we typically don't attend to sheds a lot of light on what this is in different ways than what we do attend to. You know, I really want to emphasize that this is about what is already the case. It's completely about what is already the case. It's not something new or something to develop or something to gain. It's about recognizing what you already have. You know, there's a famous story in a bunch of spiritual traditions. This old beggar woman, and she doesn't have anything. You know, she collects, you know, horse shit to sell, to make fires or something. You know, and she gets a few pennies every week or whatever. And the only thing she has is this old rock that she sleeps on as her pillow. That's, you know, and so she goes through her life, and she's, you know, she's out begging sometimes, but people don't give her any money, so she collects some more horse shit and sells it, whatever. And you know, one day, a wise man was passing by her hut, and she's, you know, please. And he says, you know, he opens the hut, and he opens it and looks in, and he brings out her rock, her pillow rock, and he says, this rock is made of gold. You know, you're rich, and you didn't know it. You had it all along, and you didn't know it because it was just a rock that was your pillow that you took for granted, and you didn't recognize what it was. You know, which is a, you know, it's a little silly story, but it illustrates the principle very truly that it's not a matter of finding something new. It's a matter of recognizing what you already are, what you already have. And it's not even recognizing it by discovering something new in your experience. You already even know it. You just haven't connected the dots somehow. You know, it doesn't get, you know, you didn't do the math to go to see, oh, wow. But the slipperiness and subtlety of mind, the mind is very insidious. You know, the mind is expert at distraction and seduction, of seducing your attention into all of this, you know, whirlwinds of fantasy, so on and so forth. And that's an ever-present energy. But again, it's a small energy in a vast field of energies. It seems huge when that's all you attend to, but it's sort of how, you know, like my thumbnail looks huge when it's right here, but, you know, out here it's just a little small phenomena in a field, a big field of other phenomena. So what kind of things are any of you tripping up on or stumbling on, or, you know, you hear all this stuff and how does it translate for you in terms of, you know, well, I kind of get it, but, you know, any buts, you know, but,
There's a cute little trick that a friend of mine kind of introduced me to. And in the space of normalcy, in a normal situation, imagine nothing, if you can. Imagine nothing. And then just be aware of what there is. Suddenly the normal becomes this symphony, cacophony, this unbelievable show of, wow,
sure.
what is this?
I like that, nice trick.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I haven't tried it in a time. Well, actually, yeah, when you're in LA, it's crazy, you're in traffic. Just imagine nothing, and then imagine this, and suddenly it's not traffic anymore. It's just this symphony. Wow.
Yeah, it disrupts the continuity of what you're holding it to be.
Yeah.
And then you get the raw data, which is amazing.
Yeah. Before you have time to parse it out.
Yeah.
It just shows up as this symphony.
Yeah, good one. All this, you know, a symphony is a really good image. All of these vibes and all of these characteristics and all these flavors and all these colors and all these sounds and all these feelings and all this, you know, weird flavors and stuff. It's just this amazing symphony. It's like a cacophony, but it has its own astoundingly weird, you know, rhythm and harmony and I mean, it's just inconceivably rich and inconceivably luscious. Just as a raw, you know, field of disparate energy, of disparate and slash inclusive energy, you know. And typically we numb ourselves because we already think we know what it is, and then we're reacting to what we think it is. You know, like traffic's a perfect example of traffic. Traffic sucks, man. The traffic, you know, it's horrible. You know, I really can't wait to get home. But then, you know, you just open your eyes and, whoa, look at this color, look at this sound, all this motion, hopefully motion.
Even when there's not motion.
Yeah, totally.
Would you say a little more about the apparent desire for this specialness that you mentioned before?
Oh, absolutely.
Fascinates me.
Well, it is fascinating, and we all tend to get fascinated by that. You know, it's a really, I think it's a really dominant mode in you know, in human psychology, as far as I can see. Of, you know, somewhere out there, you know, it's something great that's gonna do it. It's gonna, you know, be pure pleasure or pure achievement or pure satisfaction or pure whatever, you know, pure fun, you know, and it's somewhere, it's somehow better than this, you know, and it's out there somewhere, and you know, I want it, you know, and then you're off and running, and whatever guise that shows up in, but I think it's a, you know, it's a fairly common thread in our energy. Because, and I think it's not just a quirk of errant psychology. I think it's a reflection of the genuine urge, because I think that the nature of reality is intensely curious about itself. Reality lusts for itself. Reality is chasing itself. And I think that this aspect is like a harmonic of that, or an embodiment of that vector of, you know, I mean, all desire is like that. You know, desire is often made the bad guy in some spiritual traditions, but that's a mistake, because desire is radiance. Desire is the motive force of reality. You know, plants desire to grow. They desire to set flowers. They desire to make fruit. They desire to make more plants. Humans desire to live. They desire to thrive. They desire to procreate. And they desire to enjoy. And ants desire to crawl around and do whatever ants desire to do, and so on and so forth. You know, so you know, the reality is not just sort of a neutral, dull lump. You know, on the contrary, it's a profound energy of activity. It's a profound drive, and this drive is desire. It's the desire of reality. And so our desire is simply a harmonic of that, is an embodiment of that. So far from being a problem, desire is the life force. Desire is the radiance. Desire is the vibrancy of reality doing itself. And of course, your life, your reality is that reality doing itself. And it's this desire, this motive force, is what's doing it, is the activity of that. The mistake, or the problem, is to partialize it, and then it becomes a desire for something, you know. One of the commandments in the Ten Commandments deals with that, about not making idols, which is a veiled, encoded warning against concretizing the target of your desire. You know, by all means desire, but don't desire something. Just desire, you know, let your flame shine, you know, just burn into whatever, and then whatever situation you're in, you just don't concretize it or embody it, just, you know, surge through it in accordance with your nature. And so the desire for specialness is a special case of that principle. Again, it's kind of targetizing it. It's, well, I have desire, so it must be for something. What is it for? Well, it must be for something really good, since I want it. And if it's really good, it must be better than what I have, or why would I want it? And so the whole thing sort of bootstraps itself and reverse engineers itself into whatever that's sort of dream image pseudo solidifies as the target. You know, the great, you know, the grass is really greener over there. I know it is. You know? But the problem is not the desire. The problem is what the desire thinks it's for. As soon as it concretizes itself into a specific target, that's when, you know, it gets muddled. You know, you don't know what you want until you're enacting it, and even when you're enacting it, you don't know what you want because your situation is changing and morphing continuously. So you continually adjust it. So you're always dealing with the situation in terms of your desire in that context, but it's always improvising and morphing into newness, and the desire accommodates and shifts, and so it becomes more of a dance rather than a, you know, there's that, I want that, you know, mechanistic, simple, dull, static. And then you get constant satisfaction because you're constantly enacting your desire, as opposed to constant failure because you're failing to get that special thing that you know is out there somewhere. A very, very simple contact point for yoga is life force. Feel your own vitality. You know, and again, you don't need to concretize it. It's just obvious. You're alive. You know, you feel your aliveness. What makes you get out of bed at night? What makes your heart beat? Why are you breathing? Why are you thinking? Why are you curious? Why do you do things? Whatever you do. You know, it's just right here. It's spontaneous. It's just arising, and that's the radiance. And it's completely obvious. It's, you know, I mean, that's, you know this absolutely intimately. I mean, it's just completely, you know, familiar. But don't undervalue it. It's not just some accident of your biological chemistry. It's the profound upwelling of reality itself that created the chemicals, that juxtaposes them as your biological system, and then enacts enacts all the biological reactions. But it doesn't start with your body. You know, what did your body start with? You know, I mean, the sap comes up from the ground and goes into the roots and goes up the tree, and it's always coming from somewhere, going through. It doesn't start at any point. So the very fundamental basis of reality itself is upwelling, and that upwelling is, in the context of your body and all that, is your life force. So that this simple, present, obvious vitality is actually the primal force of reality. You know, in this context, and in other contexts, it's the light of the sun. Why does the sun shine? Why does light shine? Why doesn't light just stop? You know, it just shines forever. Why? It's a force. It's a life force. It's the same thing. So what looks like the life force in your embodiment and your life and your functioning in the sun looks like the sunshine, and the weather looks like weather systems. You know, in the earth it looks like gravity and the biosphere and all of this. You know, in galaxies it looks like all of the dance of gravity and the play of all of the electromagnetic and radiant forces and so on and so forth. But it's all just enactments of the same upwelling. But it's not an abstract or philosophical upwelling. It's supremely concrete. It's this right here. It's this aliveness. not as a concept, but the real thing, this obvious, self-evident, immediate fact. And but when you touch that, you're touching the core of reality. And in terms of desire, the life force doesn't have a goal. It's not going there. It's just going. Never stops. It's like water. It finds it goes into every crack and goes through it. And if there's a space for it to go, it'll go there. And so, so your desire in terms of your nature just wants to go out and do whatever is possible for it to do in whatever contexts present themselves as, mediums of enactment, mediums of engagement.
So is it as simple as just acknowledging that it's already in presence?
Yeah, but the subtlety comes in. What exactly do you mean by acknowledging? See the undeniable, self-verified fact that that's so. It can't not be that. You can say it's not that, and you'll be wrong. It's not a matter of, I acknowledge it's radiant presence. It's like, radiant presence is just swamps and drowns and obliterates any contrary idea as being so laughably absurd.
I mean, does it start with kind of just an is there a value in just intellectually?
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt, but that's not particularly powerful. But that can be a precursor. It's sort of like a forerunner, or setting a direction of a more intimate investigation. It has to be felt. It becomes known when it's felt. And of course, it's always being felt, so it becomes known when it's recognized. But recognizing the feeling comes through feeling. It doesn't come through thought.
Oh, yeah. What's happened this trip is that I've noticed the places where I know I don't see radiant presence.
Sure.
And then it's like, oh, I didn't even notice that I just didn't know I could see it in those places.
Yeah. In pragmatic terms, wherever you do see it, wherever it, bowls you over, wherever it's just like, oh my God, work with that. Don't worry about, work with the positive, don't work with the negative. So don't try and correct deficiencies go to where it's strong and just drink it in. And that in itself will correct the deficiencies. So you don't need to be fighting a rear guard. You don't need to be, fixing problems or correcting errors. Just go to wherever the greatest strength you can find, and that in itself will automatically do all that for you, which is wonderful because it's much simpler. It's like In practice, yeah, the yoga is so simple. Just find anything that has some flash to it, has some spark, has some vitality, and just tune into that. That's simple. And that does the whole thing. That does the entirety of yoga is just that. It may seem to take some time. It may seem to be a process, but it doesn't matter because it is what it is, and you can't rush it or fake it anyway. It won't do you any good. You just end up with a fantasy, another fantasy, which won't really be satisfying.
But that's what I'm saying, it's special where you're going to look for because it's everywhere, but you're saying go to where there's flash.
Go to where it's undeniable.
Where it's drawing you.
Go to where it's obvious. Go to where you're sensitive to it. Because everyone is unique. Everyone has their own individual natures. And so everyone has their own inherent sensitivities. And everyone has their own inherent sort of blindnesses and so on, or deficiencies, you might say, whatever. People have different talents and so on and so forth. So according to with what, for example, what your strong suits are, for you just notice something in your experience is like, wow, this is so alive, this is so profound, this is so real. It's like, cool. So that for you, that's a good contact point. But for someone else, it might look like something else. But what they'll be finding there is essentially the same thing.
So it is what's special to my temperament, but it's not exclusive to that.
Yeah, well, it's special. It's not special in the sense of better than normal. It's special in the sense that it lights up.
Yes, it's scintillating and sucking me in.
Yeah, it's vital. It has an undeniable self-verifying vitality, or in some sense.
Some sense, yeah.
Yeah,
and that's what our job is, to look at what that's.
Yeah, and it's an art form. You learn how to do it by learning how to do it. You can't be told how to do it from outside because it's so intensely subjective. You discover it. You may think you're doing it, and you may be off and running in some fantasy, and that's cool because then that is just part and parcel of your process of learning how to do it. You learn how to do something well by doing it poorly. But you're a musician. You learn how to play an instrument well by at first you don't, and you continually play it poorly until you play it better. And likewise with yoga, you learn to do it by doing it, and you discover what it is by discovering what it is. So all this talking about it may or may not be useful to the degree it resonates with you, to the degree you have insight, or it verifies your previous experience. But the important thing is, where the rubber meets the road is for you individually to find it in your own experience. And you know it's the real thing when it works. I mean, I wish there was a way to do it for someone else, because I would do it for you. Right. But unfortunately, you have to find it for yourself.
Well, the planet would be enlightened if you could do that, right?
It would indeed. But you come to it when you come to it, as you come to it, and it'll be unique to you, because you're unique. Everything about you is unique. Your situations are unique. Your talents are unique. Your biases are unique. Your quirkiness is unique. Everything about you is completely unique. So you're a one-off. So you have to, find your own system, find your own pattern, find what works for you. the general principles are going to be the same. But that's irrelevant. That's just sort of theory. The important thing is to find it, the actuality in your experience, and that's when it's powerful. That's when it kicks in.
That needs to be our secret refuge, and we've discovered that.
Well, it becomes that. And it becomes secret not because it's particularly secret, but because there's no way you can communicate it.
Yes, yes.
You can express it, and someone may or may not recognize the truth of your expression, but you can't actually communicate it. So it's secret, not because it's secret. It's secret just because only you know it.
Yes. But that's where we go deeper into that.
Yeah, in the knowing of it, you've opened the door to knowing it deeper forever. And that knowing just continually deepens eternally. Which is all that's ever been happening. Even our ignorance and our stupidity and our shallowness is it. Deepening is knowing of itself. And then when it breaks through into a more profound, explicit knowing of itself, it's hit an arbitrary threshold and it still continues to deepen.
Did you have a particular doorway? Did you have a particular place that was your kind of go-to place?
I had a bunch of them. I don't know if I should talk about it because, not because it's not true for me, but because it might not be useful for you, and I certainly wouldn't want to bias you to suppose that my valuable works would have any relevance whatsoever for anyone else.
No, it's more like, what was it like? I mean, what was the experience of that? You know what I mean?
The experience is a doorway opening. That's what it feels like. And for me, well, when I was younger, when I was a teenager, story time. When I was a kid, I was always intensely curious about everything. When I was very young, I was very naive and altruistic, and I had this golden rosy view of humans. I thought humans knew everything, and I knew I didn't know, but I was just a little kid. And as I grew, they were going to, gradually induct me into this great knowledge of truth and tell me what's going on, because I didn't know what was going on, and I thought everyone did. And I don't remember exactly when it was, but it must have been, maybe I was 5 or 6 or something. At some point, I had that shocking, horrifying revelation that people didn't know what was going on. It was earth-shattering for me. I mean, I don't know if everyone goes through this, but it was certainly my experience. And I was like, fuck! I'm on my own. No one knows what's going on. Everyone's telling me they know, but they don't really know, and it's all bullshit. Right. So I better figure out what's going on, because no one's going to do it for me. And so I became, obviously this is an expression of my temperament and so on. So I became sort of obsessively curious about everything. I just wanted anything that looked interesting or potentially valuable to me, I would just dive into it. And so I was reading about archaeology, I was reading anthropology, I was reading about physics, I was reading about astronomy, and then I was reading about really fringe, Ripley's Believe It or Not, what's it? Well, anyway, like extreme, bizarre phenomenon, alien abduction, just anything. It was like, I would look at it to see, maybe there's something here. Maybe I was looking everywhere. So anyway, as a result of all, not as a result, but in the course of all this rambling around voraciously investigating shit, I discovered occultism. And occultism really lit up for me. I thought, this is weird. These people pretend to know something. And what they pretend to know is really cool. So it would be really fun if there was something there.
Right.
So 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 I started, just voraciously studying all this stuff. Occultism, witchcraft, magic, Kabbalah, tarot. Just all of this sort of, occult lore and hermetic traditions and all of this stuff. And at first it was kind of a game because there's all of this, there's just encyclopedias and universes of just sort of information to accumulate, and it may or may not be bullshit. But then I had the experience of with some of these symbols. I would be being with a symbol in some sense, and it would somehow open. And at first I didn't. At first it was just weird, and then I went back, sort of referred back to the traditions, and it talks about how all these symbols are connections through the astral light to the actual principle. So they're like it's like a URL or a phone number that enables you to contact the reality, the vital reality. That's sort of like one occult theory.
Right.
And so I thought, oh my God, maybe that's what is happening here. And so I started really playing with that, and there were these various symbols that I was playing with, and this phenomena would happen. It would just open up into weirdness, and it was at least cool. It was cool as hell, and interesting and fun, and there was something there. It was weird because it didn't resolve to anything. It didn't, I didn't know what it was, but it wasn't nothing. It was potent. There was a juiciness there that was like, there's something here, and so that was probably my initial sort of contact with what I now recognize as yoga. My initial contact with reality, because I went through something that was describable, and discovered something that was absolutely undescribable, and yet potent, vibrant. And so I pursued that. Once I discovered what that was, it was all of a sudden there was a reality in my life. And occult tradition has talked about this kind of thing, forever, but it was all just sort of words and interesting stories. But at this point, all of a sudden, there was a reality in my life. It's like, astral traveling. You go through a symbol, and it's a doorway into an astral dimension. And in this dimension, there are potencies and meaningfulnesses that your very contacting of them enriches you, and you're able to draw on them and or be seduced by them, the dark side and all this stuff. But, so there's all there's all this intricate lore and all that. But I started playing with that kind of thing quite intensely. So that, to answer your question,
That's your.
Yeah, that was initial, and then that went on from there. But that's another story.
So is it more in a psychic realm to find the?
You would call it psychic realm, but it's more about feeling experiential textures. I sort of stripped all that down, and it's basically what I present. So when I'm, like the kinds of stuff that I say during meditations and stuff, it's basically this a stripped down essential version of that. To discover, and you discover the actuality of it for yourself just by discovering it. You can't having it described to you isn't going to do it. You stumble onto it, and then you recognize, oh, this must be what that refers to.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's a reality in your life. So when I say, feel what is present, it's like if you do it well, if you do it right, it opens into something vital, something powerful, something juicy. But if it doesn't, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Because, if you're even playing with this stuff, you're on the way, you're in the process of that discovery.
Yeah, there are times where it does.
Of course. Well, yeah, everyone does for some time. It's a matter of recognizing when it's for real, and then having the wit to continue to draw on that, and because as you continue, it grows.
I haven't noticed it as like walking down the stairs from my place. That's a pretty, just often, that's the place where I get
Right.
stuff. But,
Yeah.
but in terms of like a particular menu or activity besides that, I just haven't I mean, I don't hypnosis stuff and empathic stuff, I guess it's the same.
Yeah, no, for sure. Anything. There's no limits on what can be the zing.
Yeah.
You find it where you find it.
I'd wager that at some point, it feels like a stumbling into, regardless.
Totally. It's all a big accident. It's a mistake.
It's found somehow.
Yeah.
It shows up.
One of my very favorite occult philosophers, a guy named Austin Spare, my favorite quote from him is, excuse me. That's not the word.
It's still good.
My favorite quote from him is, "It was by the straying that I found the path to right." Beautiful. And it's so true.
By straying, I found.
By the straying, I found the path direct. You find the direct path by stumbling onto it. And wandering off the path is is how you find the path. Or not, whatever. You find it where you find it.
There's a sense of, when we talked about desire early on, and there's the small S Henry desire, let's say, and it's at some, in my poetic romantic mind, I come up with a scenario where there's my sense of desire, but there's another desire that is in a sense behind me. There's a desire that is way bigger, way more interested in what's going on than this one is.
Uh-huh.
And when that desire, I want to say fulfilled, but it's not fulfilled, when that desire has a dancing partner that it really likes to dance with, I'm gone. I'm not there.
Right.
I come back and I realize, oh, well, I just had a desire back. It wasn't even mine.
Yeah.
It was this, and that's always been the case.
Yeah. And that's true. And that, the big desire is your true desire. And the little Henry desire is actually that same desire sort of stepped down into a version that your personality can relate to.
Right.
But of course, you're more than your personality, and so in the real you, which is more than Henry, that's the real you, and the big desire are constant, are one and the same. Yeah, no, for sure.
I don't know if this is
No, it's okay.
I was just going to say, I don't know if this will connect for anyone, but I'll just share it. Thinking about your conversation about specialness, we were talking about actually at dinner earlier today, but my own process is like, it's like imagining that it's something other than this.
Right. Exactly.
That's however you might conceive of that, but the funny thing is it cannot be anything other than this.
Right.
Can I be what?
It cannot be anything other than this.
Right.
And so there it is.
Yeah.
There's nowhere else to look.
Yeah. Imagining it's something other than this is the root of hell, the root of infinite pain and suffering. It's basic Buddhism, in fact.
The pathless path, sounds right.
Well, the Four Noble Truths, desire and aversion is all. Desire is that there's something better than this in a simplistic sense, and aversion is, there's something worse. And as soon as there's better than worse is, you're projecting from this inclusiveness, and then you're off and running in torment.
Into fictions.
Yeah, into fictions.
Yeah. So, it's actually, I'm finding this little splitting hairs, I guess, in that when I think of the things that are juicy for me, might be being in an environment where there's snow, where it's just so quiet, or going into a church where it's at nighttime, where no one's in there, the kind of just sort of a very quiet, vast dimension. I'm attracted to that. That's sort of, and also looking at I used to look into like astral projection or stuff. I never did anything like that, but I read about it. All that seems like looking for something special that's not here. Normally. It seems so. I mean, actually, it's really a problem. I have things that I enjoy doing and looking into that are at a depth or something like that. But at the same time, there is sort of a preference in looking for something special in that as well.
Right. Well, in terms of the yoga, it's not about something special or something beautiful or something like that. It's about something violent. Something that pops. Maybe not even in a nice way. Maybe not in a way that feels good, but just, However you orient within your experience is all fine, and it doesn't matter. It's all good. You can't do it wrong. So you have absolute carte blanche to try to do what you like and try to avoid what you don't like, and all that is absolutely fine. But in terms of the yoga, in terms of discovering what this is where you need to find a point in your experience where you recognize something that you cannot get a handle on. Something that's just, whoa, something that is explicitly mysterious. Not has an air of mystery, but something that just, knocks you in the face with, wow. And it can be little things, it can be you see a beautiful sunset, and if you really feel it, it's like, you don't know why it's beautiful. It's mysterious why it's beautiful. It's mysterious why it has so much juice. And so right there, that's a door that is opening for you. What's it opening to? You can't say, but it's something. And that's the trick. That's the threshold of yogic engagement. Because what is powerful is mysterious. What is powerful has no edges, has no label, has no describability. And there's lots of that in people's life, but we typically don't recognize it because we think of it as an aspect of what is describable. Oh yeah, that's a pretty sunset. Boy, look at those purples, man, that's nice. You're missing the point. It's just like, yeah, there's purples and yeah, it's a sunset, but the wow factor is not about the details. It's just about, whoa, wait a minute. And so that's where you plug into the potency. That's where it knocks you for a loop. And you can find anywhere little things, you know. I mean, just anything, you know.
Well, that is what is going on here. What you're describing is the way that it is.
Yeah.
Nothing is ordinary and normal and humdrum. It's all very other.
It is indeed. But again, the point is to recognize that, to notice that. And then by that recognition, noticing, your ability to recognize and notice it builds, it feeds on itself, and you spiral out of normalcy, out of dullness, into this amazing actual vibrancy that we are.
So that's what you mean by it's the experience, not the content.
Yes. And it's not either or. The content comes with, you know, the sunset is the sunset and it is your beautiful purple, but that's not the point.
Does the lady keep on having to sell the horse shit after she finds that her run?
No, she's not a total idiot. In fact, she sells her. You finish the story for yourself. You can have a version where she's an idiot if you like. She sells the gold and then she has a softer pillow because she has a big sack full of money. Thank God I have a better pillow now. Anyone want to buy some horse shit?
I would have thought that you would have told the story differently. That you would say that now she keeps on selling the horse shit, but she still has her gold. And now she knows she has her gold, but she still has to keep selling her.
She's not a fucking idiot. She sells her gold, gets a bunch of servants, gets a castle on the hill, buys off some politicians, gets a road named after her, you know, and shits on some poor people. Isn't that what you're supposed to do when you get rich? This is America.
I love traditional stories.
And that's all very spiritual.
Laughter isn't it one of the amazing miracles of so many miracles?
Yeah, laughter's good. I mean, laughter is obvious. Laughter's an opening. I mean, check out laughter. Just what is it about laughter? You know, you can't answer that question. And right there, man, that's a doorway that's just standing wide open.
I mean, you can't make yourself laugh. You can pretend to laugh.
But that's not the real thing.
Prior to thought.
Yeah.
This thing.
No, you can't fake it. It's either real or it's just going through the motions, and then it's not laughter. It just looks like laughter.
And all its roots are in surprise.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Yeah, and that's the mystery. You know, I would go so far as to say that the essence of yoga is surprise. You know, the surprisingness of experience is the opening of yoga. Because when it's dull and predictable and you know what it is, the door is just closed. I mean, it's not really closed because there's no door, but in effect, it's virtualized as that.
So you could possibly, the instrument can be tuned over time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you learn how to do it by doing it. You stumble on it, and you get little hints, and then you get better at it. And your recognition feeds recognition. Recognition feeds the ability to recognize.
But you're not. It's not a movement toward a particular song.
No.
Just when the song shows up, it can come through.
Yeah.
The sound box is ready.
Yeah, exactly.
And by owning it, in a sense, I mute the sound box by appropriating.
Yeah, if you try to concretize it, yeah, it kills it. You know,
It's weird because you can't be there for it to a certain extent.
No, exactly.
I mean,
You kind of got to be out of its way.
Yeah.
Because it's not about what you're doing or what you're not doing. And as soon as it becomes about what you're doing or not doing, you're missing the point,
Yeah.
which means you're not where it is. You're wherever you think you are.
Muted.
Yeah, in effect, I mean, it doesn't actually mute it because it can't be muted, but for you, it's muted.
Yeah. Very real feeling.
Yeah.
Is it possible to regress, let's say in your case, back to normal ways of viewing, let's say?
No, but that's subtle because in a way it never progresses, which is why I can't regress. I've always been the same idiot that I've always been, and I still am. So it's not like I've gotten to achieve something wonderful and I can lose it. You can't lose what this is. And once you recognize that it is what it is, you know, it is that. It has been recognized. And even if you're still an idiot and even still wandering around in confusion and barking up wrong trees and just generally, you know, being a failure and a mess in your life, it's still in the context of this amazingness. It's really a small thing. It's a very small thing, you know, of the context. Yeah, you know, I'm a human being. I'm living my life, you know, the whole story, the whole schmear. But it's in this amazingness, and it's made of this amazingness. And it always was. I just didn't. I was too busy, not, you know, not recognizing that, ignoring that.
Yeah, like delude yourself back into, let's say, story of, you know, I don't know,
No, but you get, you know, but you never leave it. I mean, you stay deluded. Realization is not actually the opposite of delusion. Realization is the discovery that delusion doesn't matter. Because delusion is just confusion, and reality is pure confusion. Reality is confusing as hell. And then the intelligence comes along and tries to make sense of it, and then you're off and running. And that always happens. You know, it happens for realized beings, it happens for everyone. So the mechanism doesn't matter, the mechanism is always the same. It's seeing where the mechanism is and what it's made of that is the point. Realization is realization of what has always been the case. It's not attaining anything, it's not getting anything. Or for that matter, losing anything. Everything stays the same, but you come to see what it actually has always been. And paradoxically, you realize you always knew that, but even though you always knew it, you somehow didn't make the connection of wow. It's very peculiar. It's very, very peculiar. You know, yoga and realization is a tiny, tiny, tiny little thing, and it's huge beyond expression. You know, go figure. Makes no sense to me.
A doorway I'd like to share is standing looking at the night sky.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Always a wow.
Yeah, always.
How the fuck am I here in
Yes.
space? What is this shit?
Yeah.
You know, with all these planets and stars.
Yeah, yeah.
And it takes me out
Me too.
like that.
I'm with you.
I totally relax, and the mystery's there. It's a total confusion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I spent many.
But an awake confusion.
Yeah.
You're awake.
Yes, yeah.
But you can't figure it out.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
I totally. That's it right there. You asked me. We were talking about a practice. That's the ultimate practice right there.
All right.
It's what we've been speaking of really reminds me of questions about the similarity of wisdom and ignorance.
Yeah.
It's hard to get a handle on it. But as we've been speaking here as a group, it's giving me insight into there's an aspect of realization that is just the vastness of it that it's empowering and humbling simultaneously.
Yeah.
There's no way to really understand it.
No, we can't understand it. And it's not the opposite of ignorance. Ignorance is one of its modes. You know, realization liberates from ignorance, but it doesn't. But that doesn't mean it stops ignorance or solves it. It just renders it. Ignorance all is. Ignorance all of a sudden is not a problem. It negates the problematic aspect of it. So the fact that you're clueless and and wandering around just is neither here nor there. It just doesn't matter because you see that it doesn't matter. You know that it doesn't matter. So instead of having it really matter, God, I'm an idiot. You know, it's like, yeah, I'm an idiot. It doesn't matter. You know?
You get better flying it by the seat of your pants.
Yeah, you do because you know you're not trying to keep a handle on things and trying to steer things and trying to just wing it because you know it doesn't really matter. Nothing hangs in the balance.
So someone asked, Papaji, like, realized being, like, do you have to be vigilant, even you being who you are? And he said, until my last breath. So, I don't know, do you have any comments on that? Like, is there an aspect of vigilance that's involved in noticing or
I would disagree with that. I would say no, you don't have to be vigilant. You're free to be vigilant, but you can enjoy being vigilant, but you don't have to. Realization does not need to be preserved. It's not vulnerable. It's not delicate or precarious. It's undeniable, objective, self-verifying fact. It's like gravity. You don't need to be careful to be vigilant about gravity. Gravity takes care of it. It takes care of being gravity, whether you're vigilant or not. And realization is just like that. It's an objective fact. It's not something that you create that you have to then protect. It's truer than gravity. It's the ultimate truth, not in a philosophical, lightweight sense, but in the sense of physically, materially. It's what's doing everything, literally. It's not vulnerable. It's not delicate. Everything else is delicate compared to it. And recognition is unimportant Because even if you did forget it, it's not going anywhere. You haven't lost anything if you forget it. And if you forget it, you can just check it out again and you'll discover it again because it's plain to see. It's not going anywhere. It's like it's just like if you forgot about gravity, you don't need to sweat it because you can check the ball. Let's see, is gravity still working? Let's see. Oh, yeah. Found it again. Thank God. I've re-realized gravity. I'm really, for real, it's like that. But we don't acknowledge, we think we're doing everything. We think things come from themselves instead of seeing that everything is done by this one fundamental upwelling of the radiance. But I call it radiance, call it whatever you want, doesn't matter. If I was a physicist, I would say it's the unified field. It's the one force that all the other forces are components of, are actually. It's not some delicate, subtle philosophical point. It's everything else is delicate and subtle compared to it.
Right now, for me, it's a really ecstatic feeling. Like everything feels really good, and I'm wondering if that's probably ending up to.
Probably what?
Like, is that ending up to a doorway?
Sure, it can be. Whatever. I mean, the mistake is don't orient to feeling ecstatic as being as important. And then some other time, if you're feeling less ecstatic, you might think you lost something, because that's not true.
Even the non-ecstatic parts feel pretty good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because everything is a version of this.
Yes.
And so ecstasy is a version of this, but sort of tiredness and being pissed off is a version of it too. And it all comes and goes. Nothing sticks around. Nothing stays. Everything sort of is constantly morphing and drifting. And sure, there's peak times. There's beautiful times. There's ecstasy. There's joy, and then there's anger, and there's depression, and there's fights. Whatever. But it's like the weather. Some days are clear, and then there's a few little pretty clouds, and then it sets in, and then it's smog, and then it's a downpour, and whatever. It can look like anything, but whatever it looks like, it's going to change, and it's going to look like something else sooner or later. And it's the weather system that is important, not any particular weather. But ecstasy is very easy if you check this stuff out, because you can look at it, and the basic flavor of radiance is wow. I mean, it's just like you get high on this stuff. It's really just cheap thrills. and so there's that, and you can dip into that anytime you want. No hangover. No addiction. Well. Yeah. But it's not about that. And it's unfortunate in a lot of popular spirituality these days, a lot of people mistake that. They go to some kind of an event, and then basically get put into a hypnotic trance, which is blissful. And they're, it's so beautiful, and they think they've gained something, they think they've achieved something. Which is a shame, because what they've achieved is not any more special than what they had before they had that. And so then you just become addicted to needing to achieve that, become addicted to needing to repeat that trance that you're defining as achievement, or as and so it's insidious. It's precarious, because it's very easy to get sucked into something like that, and rightfully so, because it feels good to feel good. It's fun to be in ecstasy. It's fun to be in joy. It's fun to feel pleasure, and you're free to pursue that all you want. but the context within which you're pursuing it is the powerful thing, not just that result. And then by tuning into the context, you can get the result more easily. So it's kind of a win-win.
So the ecstatic feeling that one stumbles into or stumbles upon, or that is stumbled upon, is correlated with, in a sense, the diminishment of self, let's say.
Right.
There's a disappearance here, there's an integration to something else. But at times when I feel caught up in what I call opaque state, let's say.
Right.
It's the same thing, but this small s is profoundly unable, it seems, to recognize that.
Right.
And yet it's still going on.
Right. Yeah. And this is one of the achievements of yoga. Through development of sensitivity, through development of yoga, you become more and more aware that even when you've lost it, you haven't lost it. Even when it shuts down, you haven't shut down. It's just another flavor, in the stew, but it's still the stew. Because yoga is the antidote to partiality. The parts are this and that. The parts are, ecstasy or opaque. So there's these two parts. Here's ecstasy and here's opaque. Ecstasy is great, opaque sucks. Okay, great. But when you do yoga, you discover that there's not really this part and there's not really that part. There's something else that these two parts are aspects of. And then when you can tune into that something else, the separation and the contrariety and the mutual exclusion of these two, what you thought to be separate states, the lines get blurred. It all smears together, and it all sort of interpermeates in nonlinear, bizarre ways.
Yeah.
And the whole system breaks down as being a this and a that, as being a better or a worse. It just becomes weird. It's all weird. Ecstasy is weird, and opacity is weird.
They're both connected.
Yeah, exactly. And this becomes more and more explicit and more, immediately obvious, self-verifyingly obvious in your experience as yoga progresses. Just by checking it out, it becomes more and more obvious that that's the case. And the feeling tone of that, not just philosophically, the feeling tone of that, starts to permeate you. It's not just theoretically, but you get it. It's like you feel it. It's like, yeah, I'm having a crappy day today.
So this is just coming to mind now. I have the type of wave function where if something that's done through this thing it seems to be useful to people. It's, oh wow, that was great, you did that. My immediate response is, well, I didn't do it. It's just so glad you enjoy it, I didn't do it. But if somebody comes up and says, what the hell are you doing? Oh, I'm sorry. That's different. So of course, when ecstasy is happening, that can't be me. That's just. But when the opposite happens, of course, that's Henry. That's me.
Yeah. You're like a Christian.
Well, perfectly weird.
You're like a Christian. Everything good God does, everything bad you do.
That's it, all right.
That's me.
Yeah.
My sins are mine, my virtues are God.
Yeah.
Not fair.
And so, of course, it would make sense that the times when shit's hitting the fan, the rest of it wouldn't be available because I'm doing it.
Peter, do you notice that do things begin to change in our so-called external reality when we see more clearly in our daily reality? Is that?
Yes.
Yes.
And it's a strange phenomenon. And you can't pin it down because you can't tell if it's because you're noticing things as a result of increased sensitivity or things are actually changing, and basically it becomes a moot point what it is. But it's very interesting. As yoga begins to kick in, you'll notice a lot of things changing. It's kind of a sign. A sign of effective yoga is when your life starts either falling apart or taking off, or weird shit starts happening. Synchronicities start to align. I mean, it can be anything. It can be horrors. Your life can completely fall apart, and you can get cancer, and just whatever. But you'll notice something's going on. In my experience, it's very magical. In my experience, when yoga starts getting strong, the universe, literally the objective experience of the phenomena you experience, starts telling you, starts showing you that it really is like that. But again, it's not that it's really different. The universe has always been talking to you through your phenomena, just like dreams. The phenomena in a dream are giving you messages. They're talking to you, and you may not recognize it consciously. It may just be, well, it's a weird dream, and then you wake up and you forget about it. But everything that seems to occur is subtly and weird and very not linearly and irrationally meaningful and profound. And whether or not this ramps up or whether or not it just becomes more recognized as yoga begins to kick in, it's definitely noticeable.
The Tibetan tradition, what you just spoke of, where you're feeling like the yoga is really coming in, it reminds me of something that great if you would elaborate on, and it's spoken of as the terma of phenomena, where in the context that everything is the dharmakaya, that it's really your presence, and that all the phenomena in your inner arising and outer existence all terma that is celebrating, I feel.
Sure.
If we can really.
It's celebrating and it's enacting, and it's a purposeful dance, or you could say a ritualized dance.
We can't hear Jeremiah's question.
Oh. Unaccustomed as he is to public speaking. Unaccustomed as he is to public speaking. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Everybody, please take the rags out of your mouth. Project. Trippingly on the tongue. These internet followers are so demanding. They don't want just the honor of watching this. They want to actually be able to hear it too. I mean, is that picky or what? Really? Well, this room is impossible acoustically. It's virtually impossible to make a good recording in here. I listened to the recording and sounds like talking in an echo chamber, you know? It's,
This whole idea, this fact that everything's communicating
yeah,
is really awesome.
it is, yes.
And I've kind of sometimes gone to it, maybe kind of ask backwards rather than things open up, and then I start noticing things are communicating. So I've actually started looking at things in daily life as if they are dream symbols. Like they're actually mean something, even if I don't know what it is. It's sort of
yeah, that's good yoga. And you're an artist, so I mean, art is all about the way form communicates.
Yeah.
You know, and it's all completely irrational and non-linear, but it's juicy. You know, and it doesn't have to be art to be that. Everything is that.
Right.
All
That's
form.
Magic, I think.
Yeah.
To me, that's what magic is. When the whole thing starts speaking.
Yeah, and that's how it is. I mean, that's what's going on. It can be ignored and not recognized, or rationalized out of existence, but it always is like that.
All the subliminal signals that the psychologists speak of, this is all part of the languaging.
Yeah, exactly. So everything is language. Everything is pure, is hyper transcendental intelligence. All form is the inherent intelligence. The inherent intelligence is making all form and is speaking, is yelling through all form. But it's a very subtle, you know, transcendental, irrational language. And so to learn to hear it, to learn to speak it, learn to feel its poignancy is where the sort of heightened sensitivity is valuable.
That's where the juice is, right? Tuning in.
Yeah. And you tune into it, and then it feeds itself. You tune into the juice, and you drink it, and it.
There's a comment where it really struck me. Yeah, I was just really struck with the image of when we really get turned on, then the pranic energy is really flowing through us. And when that's going on, then all the phenomena actually lights up with all of its pranic energy.
Yeah.
And it's a mutual celebration.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really, you know, which touches on something we've sort of skimmed obliquely in the last couple of days, is sort of a subtle energy permeated fields, interactive fields. You know, that everything is, you know, dimensions of subtle energy resonating with each other. Everything is that. It's not something that you have, it's what you are. And most of it is strangely non-physical in an explicit sense, and extra dimensional and so on and so forth, but it's very, very real and concrete. And it's very easy to tune into. And in fact, one of the easiest ways to tune into it is like we were talking about last night, just pretend you can. You know, it's like, I can feel all the fields of subtle energy, and then just do it. And don't worry about you don't know how to do it. Just bootstrap it into existence if you can, and all of a sudden you will be. And it's really, in fact, easy and obvious. And once you can do it, you'll wonder why you ever thought you couldn't. You know, and it's very, very easy. You can start by reading people's auras. People's auras are really, really easy to read. Just people's flavors. You know, you just check out what someone feels like, and everyone feels like, oh my God, it's like so different. You know, it's like so many different flavors and so many different. You know, it's like, and it's really obvious. It's, you know, and then you start with that, and then you can look at like chords, look at interactions of fields, look at what the way it is when people are near each other, what that sort of, excuse me, my throat is seizing up. the sort of chord that is being made by those notes of the flavors of people's, you know, resonance with each other, and so on and so forth. And then you can start looking at physical things. They all have flavors too. And so there's all these dimensions that are overlapping, impacting each other, and dancing with each other. And it's really quite easy to notice. We don't usually pay attention to it because it's not part of our human brain structure. You know, you can't really use it, you know, typically for, you know, getting pissed off at people in traffic or whatever it is that, you know, you like to do. But it can be very useful, especially in terms of accessing subtler dimensions of your own experience. You know, you can feel your aura, and then feel the flavors, the resonances at different points in your aura, and then, you know, you can go up and feel how it opens into other sort of dimensions and flavors, and you can actually tune into that and be with that, and you learn an amazing amount, non-linearly and non-communicably, of what you are and what is here. And this energy is personal in the sense that it's right here, but it's also impersonal. So by tuning into your own energies of your auric field, so to speak, you get first-person experience of the strange ways that objectivity and subjectivity are one thing.
That's really direct transmission.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's easy to do. You just do it. Don't worry about how. Just like do it. It's like, okay, here I'm feeling my subtle energy about it. You know, what's the flavor here? You know, what's the flavor here? What's it like? What's the vector? Is it? You know. And all of a sudden it's subtle. You know, it's subtle. But once you sort of recalibrate the dial to that level of subtlety, it's very concrete. I mean, that's easy to do. It's a lot of fun too. And then you'll begin to notice how much of your interaction is with other people is subtle energy resonance. When you do it deliberately rather than unconsciously, then you can really tune in with people and be, you know, have extreme intimacy very directly and very easily.
I have another wow moment. Would you guys like to hear it? Sure. Okay, I don't want to intrude on your seminar here.
Wow is not an intrusion. Wow is welcome.
Okay, I'll tell you, this happened about 4 days ago before I came here. We got 2 white Schnauzer puppies that'll be a year old in July. And we were in the pool. And so we're trying to get them to swim. So it's my husband Kenneth and I were there. And all of a sudden this light hit the pool. The sun was down, but this light hit the pool and the dogs were glistening. And everything was magical there. I'm not a pool person, by the way, but I got in that day. And yeah. And it lasted for 3 days. This magical beauty, nature of the puppies, they were just glowing. And I said to Kenneth, this is a perfect day with a pee. He said, yeah. And when I would try to share that with other people, they did, oh, that's nice. Oh, it was way beyond nice.
Yeah, it's nice.
It was a capital P moment.
Yeah.
And it lasted for 3 days.
See, that's good yoga. That's excellent yoga right there. Just that. Just that.
Thank you guys for listening.
Sure. We're rolling to go out by schnauzers now.
By the way, Stan, it's not about the schnauzers. Dachshunds will also work.
I have some schnauzers for sale outside.
That's the same reaction that I get with every single stupid, crazy, incredible, miraculous thing that I say, oh, that's nice.
Mhm.
We're like, yeah, that's nice. It's like, come on.
Fuck you.
Right, yeah.
Fuck you.
Right, exactly. So, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just not worth bothering to open your mouth sometimes, I tell you.
Right, yeah, that's exactly it.
Pearls before swine.
Interesting about that subtle energy thing, because back to the way that I woke up, there was a period of time where I was like really psychic, and then that just kind of trickled into being very sensitive to people's energy fields, and that itself was another doorway hang up, because I wanted to control that, and it was like a painful.
Yeah.
So it's a whole nother layer of control that you have to let go of and let it kind of meld into its own thing, and then that's when the suffering kind of went away. Just when you just let it all.
Yeah. It's when you concretize it, when you try to structuralize it or get a handle on it or pin it down, that's what kills it. That's the fly in the ointment. When you just let it be weird and just let it rest in its own weirdness without trying to get a hold of it, that's when you get to keep it, and it remains vital and just takes off.
Yeah, and it kind of turns into something greater rather than staying at the.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. Well, this has been a great night. I'm happy. I was a little slowed down when we started. I was a little concerned that I was just going to nod off here in the chair. But I really feel very pleased. This has been very, very nice. I feel like the retreat is just right on track. Outward bound. So anyway, you all have a good night. And